Let me tell you a story. It is not a story I invented, nor one dressed up with fantasy or fiction. It is a story of flesh and blood, of sweat and tears, of a woman who believed in love so much that she gave all of herself, and a man who took that gift only to turn it into betrayal. Her name was Patricia. Patricia was not born into wealth. She was not given a life of ease or the kind of education that opened every door. Instead, her life was shaped by early mornings, by heavy baskets on her head, by long days in the market where the sun beat down and the voices of sellers rose in an endless chorus. She worked as what you might call a bush meat vendor, a woman who rose before dawn, bought meat in the wild, and carried it back to town to sell. It was honest work, hard work, and it gave her a sense of dignity. She was strong, determined, and she held on to one dream, that her life would not end where it began. And then, in the middle of that routine life, a man appeared. His name was Mathias. He came to the market often, sometimes just to buy, sometimes just to linger. At first, Patricia thought nothing of it. Just another customer, just another face among many. But then she began to notice something. He always came to her stall, always found an excuse to ask about her goods, to strike up a conversation, to smile. Slowly, the line between customer and companion blurred. One day, he asked for her number. Now, Patricia was cautious. She had grown up knowing that men's words were not always worth trusting. But Mathias seemed different. He was persistent, yet gentle. He spoke to her as if she mattered, as if he could see in her not just a woman carrying meat to market, but a partner, a soul worth cherishing. Against her caution, against the little voices of doubt, Patricia gave him her number, and so it began. Calls turned into conversations, conversations into visits, visits into a budding affection. Mathias saw in her, he said, a fighting spirit, a woman who knew how to survive. Patricia, in turn, saw in him the promise of a man who wanted to build a future, not just for himself, but with her. When he asked her hand in marriage, her heart leapt with joy. For every woman, she thought, dreams of this moment. And here it was, finally hers. They went through the traditional rites, the families gave their blessing, and Patricia became Mathias's wife. At first, life seemed manageable. Mathias had his own work. Patricia continued her business. Money was not abundant, but they could live, they could dream, they could plan. She still woke up at 5 in the morning, still carried her baskets, still did the hard work she had always done. But now, she told herself, it was not just for her survival, it was for them. But then, a shadow entered their home. One evening, Mathias came back looking unsettled, sweat running down his face, his words restless. Patricia asked what was wrong. At first, he brushed it off, but eventually the truth tumbled out. He was tired of his job. He said he was disrespected, undervalued, treated with disdain. He wanted to leave. Patricia was alarmed. If he left his job, what would they do? How would they live? But Mathias's eyes were full of fire. He said he had a plan. He wanted to start a business, his own business, free from the chains of employers. The idea itself was not bad. Patricia admired people who dreamed, people who wanted to rise above their station. But there was a problem, money. Mathias admitted he had none, and so he turned to her. He reminded her that she was his wife. He reminded her that in marriage, two became one. He asked her to invest in him. At first, Patricia resisted. She was cautious. Money does not fall from trees. And what little she had was the fruit of endless days of sweat. But Mathias was persuasive. He spoke of millions. He spoke of a future where she would no longer need to break her back at the market. A future where she would be the secretary of his company, where they would be partners in business and in life. Little by little, Patricia's defenses melted. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe in love, and so she made a decision that would change her life forever. She sold her tools, her bâche, the truck she used to carry goods. She gathered her savings, everything she had painfully stored away. It came to 8 million francs in total. 8 million. A fortune for her. The very marrow of her labor, the proof of her struggle. And she gave it all to him. With trembling hands, she placed her life's work into his. She thought she was building their future, and Mathias took it. For a while, Patricia tried to believe in the dream Mathias had painted. She had given him everything. Her savings, her tools, her time, her trust. And in the beginning, he seemed grateful. He gave her a little money here and there. even paid for her to attend evening literacy classes so she could finally learn to read and write. That touched her heart. At night, she practiced letters and words by candlelight. She stumbled, her pen shaky, but each time she traced a word, she thought, "This is for us. This is for the life Mathias and I are building together." But slowly, she began to notice something was not right. Mathias grew distant. He came home later and later. When she asked how the business was going, his answers were vague, full of words she didn't understand, numbers she couldn't follow. Sometimes he dismissed her questions altogether, saying, "You wouldn't understand. It's complicated." Patricia wanted to trust him. She reminded herself that she had not gone to school, that maybe she simply wasn't capable of understanding. But a knot of unease began to grow in her chest. And then one day, everything changed. It was an ordinary afternoon. Mathias had gone out, and Patricia decided to tidy up his things. She wanted to arrange his clothes, to make his desk neat. As she moved papers around, her eyes fell on a large envelope tucked beneath a stack of files. Something about it drew her attention. She hesitated. She wasn't the kind of woman to pry into her husband's belongings, but curiosity gnawed at her. After all, this was their life, wasn't it? She picked up the envelope, slid out the papers, and tried to read. Her literacy was still new, her reading halting. She sounded out words slowly, piecing them together like a puzzle. At first she thought she must have misunderstood, but as the sentences revealed themselves, her blood ran cold. It was a property document, a deed, a house, but the name on the paper was not hers. It was the name of another woman. Patricia's hands shook. She read the name again and again, praying her eyes were deceiving her. She could not believe it. After all her sacrifices, after giving him her entire future, he had bought a house for someone else. Her breath caught in her throat. She sat down heavily, the room spinning around her. At first, she thought maybe there was a mistake. Maybe this was business. Maybe the woman was just a client, or someone Mathias was helping for a reason. She didn't want to believe the worst. So she took the papers to her neighbor, a woman who was more educated. "Please," Patricia said, her voice trembling. "Read this for me. Tell me what it means." The neighbor looked at the document and her face hardened. "Patricia, this is a deed. Your husband bought a house, but not for you, for another woman." The words sliced through her heart like a knife. When Mathias returned home that evening, Patricia confronted him. "What is this?" she demanded, holding out the papers. For a moment, Mathias froze. Then his face darkened. "Why are you going through my things? Who told you to touch my papers?" Patricia's tears welled. "Don't turn this on me, Mathias. Tell me the truth. Did you buy a house for another woman?" He looked at her. And in that instant, all the tenderness she had once known in him was gone. His voice was sharp, cold, unforgiving. "Yes," he said flatly. "I did, and I don't want you anymore." Patricia felt her knees weaken. She thought she might collapse. "What do you mean you don't want me? After everything, after I gave you my money, after I sold my tools, after I gave you my life." Mathias waved his hand dismissively. "That's the past. I don't love you anymore. I've found someone else, someone better, someone who fits me." The words fell like stones on her heart. Patricia tried to reason with him. She reminded him of her sacrifices, of how she had believed in him when no one else did. She pleaded with him not to throw away their marriage. But Mathias was unmoved. He told her that he would give her a small sum, 2 million francs, and that she should take it and leave. "That's more than enough for you," he said, as if she were nothing but a burden to be discarded. Patricia's tears fell freely now. 2 million? "You took 8 million from me, Mathias. You took my livelihood. You took my hope. And now you throw me away for another woman." But his eyes were cold, his heart closed. The betrayal was not only financial. It was emotional, spiritual, complete. Patricia realized in that moment that the man she had trusted, the man she had believed in, had not just taken her money. He had taken her love, her dreams, her dignity, and handed them to another woman. The pain was unbearable. Night after night, she cried herself to sleep. Questions tormented her. What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? Why would the man I loved choose someone else after all I sacrificed? But there were no answers. Patricia did what many women in her place might do. She reached out to Mathias's family. Surely, she thought, they would help her reason with him. Surely they would remind him of his responsibilities, of his vows. But when she called his brother, the response was cruel. "Who are you?" he sneered. "You don't deserve my brother. You never did. The rejection burned. Even his family dismissed her. She felt utterly alone. Her only confidant was her neighbor, the one who had read the papers. That neighbor, seeing Patricia's despair, advised her to share her story publicly, to seek help and counsel. "Go and tell them," she urged. "At least you will not carry this burden in silence. At least someone will hear you." And so, with trembling steps and a heart weighed down by sorrow, Patricia chose to speak. She would tell her story, not to shame herself, but to seek understanding, to demand justice, to ask the world, what did I do to deserve this? And so Patricia's heartbreak was laid bare. The woman who had given her all now stood with nothing, a husband who had taken everything, a family who rejected her, and a future she no longer recognized. Patricia's story, heavy with sorrow, was not one she wanted to keep hidden in the shadows. She needed to face Mathias openly, to hear his words with her own ears, and to let others witness what had been done to her. So the day came when they sat across from each other, no longer husband and wife in spirit, but adversaries in truth. Patricia's eyes were red with tears, her voice shaking with both anger and despair. Mathias, in contrast, wore a calm mask, the kind of arrogance a man puts on when he believes he holds all the power. The room was tense. Every word, every pause, seemed to carry the weight of years of sacrifice and betrayal. "Mathias," she said, her voice breaking. "Why? Tell me, why did you do this to me? What have I ever done to deserve this? I gave you everything. I trusted you with all I had, and you turned it into a weapon against me. Why?" Mathias leaned back, as if her tears were an inconvenience. "Patricia, I already told you. I don't love you anymore. That's the truth. You keep asking why, but there is no why. I've moved on." She stared at him, stunned. "Moved on? To who? To what? To her? To this woman who came into your life after I had given you mine?" Mathias shrugged. "Her name is Stephanie, and yes, I bought her a house. She understands me. She is educated. She speaks languages. She can help me build my business. With her, I see a future. With you," he paused, his eyes cold. "With you, I see limits." The words cut Patricia deeper than any knife could. "Limits?" she repeated, almost whispering. "I was your strength. I was the one who believed in you when you had nothing. I was the one who put my savings in your hands, who sold everything just so you could stand tall. And now you call me a limit?" Mathias's expression hardened. "Patricia, stop. You're making this dramatic. You helped me, yes, but you don't understand how business works. You can't read contracts properly. You don't understand deals. I can't take you into meetings. You embarrass me. Stephanie is different. She fits." Patricia trembled, her voice rising. "Embarrass you? Mathias, I sat in the market every day, under the burning sun, carrying baskets twice my weight, to earn the money you begged me for. Did I embarrass you then? Did I embarrass you when I gave you 8 million? When I stripped myself of everything I had so you could chase your dream?" For a moment, silence filled the room, and then Mathias answered with a chilling calm, "Yes, you gave me money, and I used it. That's all. You should accept that and move on." Patricia's hands clenched into fists. Her voice cracked as tears streamed down her face. "You used me," she whispered. "That's all I was to you. Not a wife, not a partner, just a stepping stone. You wanted my money, my sweat, my sacrifice, but not me." Mathias didn't flinch. He leaned forward, his voice low and sharp. "Listen, Patricia, I don't regret it. Not one bit. I took what I needed, and now I don't need you anymore." The cruelty of those words was almost too much to bear. At that moment, Patricia's grief erupted into anger. "Give me back my money then," she cried. 8 million! Every coin, every drop of sweat I gave you. Give it back!" Mathias smirked, his tone mocking. "You think life works that way? You think I'll just hand it back because you're crying? I'll give you 2 million. Take it and be grateful." 2 million? Patricia shouted. 2 million for my entire life. 2 million for the years I spent building with you. For the business I abandoned because you told me to. For the future you destroyed. No, Mathias. I want what is mine, all of it. But Mathias only shook his head. "Patricia, stop embarrassing yourself. You should be thankful I'm offering you anything at all." The room grew heavier with every exchange. It was not just money they argued about. It was dignity, betrayal, love turned to ash. Patricia pressed on, desperate for him to see the truth. "Mathias, do you even remember the woman I was before you came into my life? I had my own trade, my own tools, my own rhythm. I was building something with my hands, something honest. I was proud of what I had. And then you came. You said, 'Sell it all. Trust me.' I will make us rich, and I believed you. I believed because I thought you were my husband, because I thought you loved me, and now you throw me away like trash." Her voice broke, and she clutched her chest as if the pain were tearing her apart from the inside. But Mathias did not soften. He crossed his arms, his face cold. "You're holding on to the past. Things change. I've chosen Stephanie. That's it. You can cry, you can scream, but nothing will change my mind." It was not only the betrayal itself that destroyed Patricia, but the lack of remorse. Mathias showed no regret, no gratitude, no trace of the man she once loved. He spoke as though her sacrifices were meaningless, as though her love was nothing more than an inconvenience. Patricia shook her head slowly, her tears falling onto her hands. "You will regret this, Mathias. Not because I wish it on you, but because one day you will realize what you destroyed. You will realize that a woman who gave her all is not a woman to throw away lightly, and when that day comes, it will be too late." But Mathias only laughed softly, a hollow laugh, without warmth. "Regret? No, Patricia, I regret nothing. Stephanie is my future. You are my past. Accept it." The confrontation ended not with resolution, but with a wound left open and bleeding. Patricia rose from her seat, her body trembling from the weight of it all. She looked at Mathias one last time, searching for even a flicker of the man she once loved. But all she saw was a stranger who had taken her life's work and handed it to someone else. That night, Patricia lay awake, her heart broken beyond words. She thought of the woman she had been before Mathias, the woman who had dreamed of learning, of rising, of building something for herself. And she thought of the woman she had become, emptied, stripped, discarded. She asked herself over and over, why wasn't I enough? Was my love not real? Was my sacrifice not enough? But the more she asked, the more she realized there was no answer. There was only the truth, that she had loved a man who never truly loved her back. And now, she had to find a way to live with that truth. So here stood Patricia, broken but unbowed, her soul crushed by betrayal, but still searching for a reason to rise again. Mathias had chosen his path, and it was a path of coldness, of selfishness, of arrogance. But Patricia's path was not finished. When the confrontation ended, Patricia felt as though her heart had been shattered into 1,000 pieces. But even in her brokenness, she refused to be silent. Her pain needed to be heard. Her story needed to be told. So she sat down in front of others, men and women, strangers and friends, and poured out her heart. She spoke of Mathias's betrayal, of the house he bought for another woman with her money, of the way he dismissed her as though she had never mattered. Every word was heavy, but every word was truth. Across from her, Mathias remained cold, unmoved. He defended himself with arrogance, saying he had no regrets, that Patricia was part of his past, that his future was with another woman. His voice carried no hint of shame, and then the voice of wisdom broke the silence. The pastor, who had been listening all along, leaned forward. His words were calm but carried the weight of truth. "Mathias," he said, "tell me, why did you buy a house for this other woman?" Mathias did not hesitate. "Because I love her. She has the education, the language, the qualities I need to grow. With her, I can build my future." The pastor shook his head slowly. "And what about Patricia? Did she not love you? Did she not give you all she had? Did she not stand by you when you had nothing?" Mathias looked away. "That was then. Things have changed. Changed." The pastor pressed. "Mathias, you had 1 million to your name. She gave you 8. She sold her livelihood, her very tools, to lift you up. And the first thing you do when your hands touch prosperity is to buy a house for another woman. You call that love? No, Mathias, that is betrayal." Patricia sat quietly, her tears flowing as the pastor's words pierced the air. He turned to her. "My daughter, you are not to blame. You did what you thought was right. You loved, you trusted, and though it has left you wounded, your sacrifice does not make you weak. It makes you strong. Do not let this man's betrayal define your worth. You were a fighter before him, and you will be a fighter after him." Patricia nodded, though her heart was heavy. The pastor's voice grew firm again as he addressed Mathias. "You call yourself a man of business, but a man who cannot keep faith in his home is no man at all. You say Patricia is not enough because she cannot read contracts or speak foreign languages, but it was her sweat that built your foundation. It was her sacrifice that gave you your chance, and you discard her because you think another woman shines brighter. Let me tell you, Mathias, the same way you cast her aside, you too will be cast aside. The woman you praise today may one day leave you. And when that happens, what will you have? A house without love, wealth without peace, a future built on betrayal. You will see the emptiness of it. Mark my words. Mathias shifted in his seat, uncomfortable, but his pride would not let him yield. Pastor, with all respect, I've made my choice. I don't regret it. My future is Stephanie, and nothing will change that. The pastor sighed. Then you are a fool, because you've chosen blindness over wisdom. For Patricia, those words were both a comfort and a challenge. She knew she could not undo what had been done. She could not reclaim the years she had given to Mathias, nor could she force him to love her again. But she could choose how she would walk forward. That night, as she lay awake, she thought not of Mathias, but of herself. She remembered the woman she had been before he entered her life. Strong, independent, hard-working. She remembered rising before dawn, loading her truck, traveling long distances to buy and sell. She remembered the pride of standing on her own 2 feet. She whispered to herself, I was someone before him. I will be someone after him. The tears still came. Yes, the pain was still raw. But beneath it, a small spark began to flicker. A spark of resilience. A spark that said, this betrayal will not be the end of me. Patricia's story is not only hers. It is the story of countless women who give their all to men who see their worth only in terms of money, sacrifice, or convenience. Women who build, who fight, who pour themselves out in love, only to be abandoned when they are no longer useful. But her story also carries a warning. The pastor spoke it plainly. Women, be wise. Do not hand over everything you have to a man just because he promises you love. Test his character. Watch his choices. A good man provides for his wife. He does not strip her of what she has. Marriage is not built on exploitation, but on partnership. Patricia listened, and she knew these words were not just for her. They were for every woman who might find herself in her shoes. And what of Mathias? Even as the pastor rebuked him, even as Patricia poured out her pain, he stood firm in his arrogance. He repeated again and again, I have no regrets. My future is with Stephanie. That is final. But those who listened could see beyond his words. They could see the pride in his eyes, the blindness of a man who believed that money and a new relationship were the measure of success. The pastor's words echoed in the room. The same way you betrayed her, you will be betrayed. You cannot sow betrayal and reap loyalty. You cannot sow selfishness and reap love. One day, Mathias, you will face the harvest of what you've planted. As the gathering drew to a close, Patricia found herself strangely lighter. The pain had not disappeared, but speaking her truth had lifted a weight from her chest. She looked at Mathias one last time, and this time she did not beg. I release you, she said softly. If you want Stephanie, then go. But know this, you have lost something no house, no money, no business can replace. You lost a woman who gave you her all. And one day, you will see the cost of that loss. Mathias scoffed, dismissing her words. But Patricia no longer cared. She turned away, and as she walked out, she whispered a prayer under her breath. Lord, give me strength to rebuild. Give me wisdom not to fall into this trap again, and help me remember my worth, even when others do not see it. Patricia's story is not tied up in a neat bow. She did not get her money back in full. She did not win back her husband. She did not erase the scars of betrayal. But what she did gain was something more enduring. Clarity. She saw the truth of who Mathias really was. She saw the strength that still lived inside her, the same strength that once carried her baskets to market at dawn. And she began to see that though her marriage had ended in pain, her life did not end with it. For Patricia, the road ahead would not be easy, but it would be hers, and for those who heard her story, the lesson was clear. Love is not measured by words, but by actions. True partnership is built on respect, not exploitation, and no matter how much we give to another, we must never forget our own worth. So, what became of Patricia? She rose again. Slowly, with trembling steps, she returned to the market. She borrowed small sums, rebuilt piece by piece, and reminded herself that she was not defined by Mathias's betrayal. And what of Mathias? Time would tell. Perhaps the pastor was right. Perhaps the very woman he abandoned Patricia for would one day abandon him too. But that was no longer Patricia's burden to carry. Her burden now was her healing, her future, her dignity. And that, she knew, was worth more than any house or fortune.